yo. Here we go. Here we go, yo. One time for your mind. You know we ball all day. Yeah. Just know we talk ball all day. Welcome to the full court press. Full court press. We got Danny Thompson on the mic, so just chill with the set. Ball all day. Yeah. Just know we talk ball all day. Welcome to the full court press. Full court press. We got Danny Thompson on the mic, so just chill with the set.
Welcome, everybody. This is 9:06 Eastern Time on November 10th, 2015. This is Full Court Press Radio, sponsored by SOFOELLC, here on the new FM 96.9 The Game. I'm your host, Danny Thompson, and for those who've never listened to the show, for the next 2 hours, we're going to talk about the best and the brightest NBA topics with some of the best personalities around. 407-916-8255 is the number to call in if you're in Orlando, or if you're listening nationwide on iHeartRadio, 800-729-8255. But I can't do this without our favorite tag team and dynamic duo. To my right, he is also the editor-in-chief of NBAFCPRadio.com and also one of our columnists, Paul Myers. Paul, what's up, man?
Man, another beautiful night in Orlando.
Exactly. And coming in from the city of brotherly love, basically the best thing out of Philly because it's not the Sixers, the social media manager of NBAFCPRadio.com, as well as our NBA draft expert, Mr. Marc Johnson. Marc, how you doing?
I'm good. You know, a lot to get to tonight, a lot of stories. I'm just ready to jump in.
Also, after the 10 o'clock hour, our good friend Zach Oliver, the editor of Orlando Pinstripe Post, will be on with us talking about the Magic. Like I said, so if you got your Magic questions ready, he's ready to take care of them for you because they've had a busy week coming up. So like I said, 407-916-8255 is the number, or toll-free 800-729-8255. Guys, interesting week in the league this week. You know, I know everybody wants to talk about the Golden State Warriors. They've been obliterating and blowing out everybody completely possible this week. They took care of, the Detroit Pistons last night. Steph Curry is a walking video game, and we all know that. But there are 29 other teams in the NBA, and really everybody's only talking about one team and one player in particular. Guys, we've been in the, this is our second week in the season going on. Is there anybody else other than Stephen Curry that we should be talking about, like for MVP or something notable?
Well, absolutely. For me, it's Russell Westbrook. The way he's been playing has been phenomenal. Especially I understand that he may not have all the highlights that Steph Curry creates, and I think that's where the big buzz comes from on Curry, is that he hit the shots, the no-look passes, the things of that nature, the crossovers. Yeah, that stuff is all glamorous, but it's not 26, 10, and 7. With 2 steals a game, which is what Westbrook is averaging so far this year. I got to go with Westbrook. I do like Curry, and I know people probably listen to the show. They're like, oh, man, Paul always kind of downplays Curry. It's not that I'm downplaying him. I just think that he gets a little more praise than other players do who are also performing at a high level. James Harden has actually had a really good week, which, he was rewarded with Western Conference Player of the Week. But for me, it's Russell Westbrook right now. He's putting up Oscar Robertson-like numbers. That is alluding to one of my articles, by the way. But, he's putting up Oscar Robertson-type numbers right now. These are not numbers that you see hardly ever in the NBA. So I'm going with Russell Westbrook over Steph Curry for MVP right now, for early season MVP. Understand, we're not even 10 games in yet, but the way he's playing is unbelievable.
Marc, what are your thoughts?
You're talking about MVP, Steph Curry. You hear names Russell Westbrook, James Harden. I'm going to give you another name. It's Andre Drummond. He's a man amongst boys out there right now. He's the best big man in the game, and that means better than Anthony Davis. He's better than Anthony Davis right now. That's how good he's been, a walking 2020 guy. This guy, really goes after it. If he played on a better team, I think a lot more people would be talking about him. But he's been playing lights out. And you know what? I think he can actually keep some of this up. I don't think 20 rebounds is all of a sudden going to turn into 10. I think he can keep some of this up. Maybe not at the clip that he's playing at, but he's going to be able to keep this up pretty well throughout the season, if he stays healthy.
And if I could piggyback real quick, I don't know if you guys remember, and I think Zach was actually here that night. I said who was going to be the Defensive Player of the Year. Andre Drummond, and it's looking pretty good with 19 rebounds, 2 blocks, and 2 steals a game.
Well, there's one guy, we've talked about, you guys have mentioned one that you guys haven't talked about. It's Blake Griffin.
True.
Griffin, 28, almost 29 points a game, 10 rebounds a game. He's actually rebounding for his size for once. People get on him for the rebounding. But here's another statistic that's been actually good for him. He's hitting 81% from the line this year.
Yeah, very impressive.
He's hitting 81% of the line, and Chris Paul hasn't even played his best basketball at all this year. The Clippers are deep. And
I feel like the team itself is cruising, right? I mean, that's kind of how it feels.
I mean, if you take away the non-goaltending call on Saturday night, which was a travesty that should have been called against Houston on Saturday, the Clippers only have one loss. And Griffin is right there in that discussion. Like I say, he's shooting 59% from the floor, 81% from the line. He's averaging almost 29 points a game, 10 rebounds, almost 4 assists a game. Yeah. The numbers are there. The team is winning. So that's one guy I think that could be challenging for MVP. Now, we all know Curry's at almost 33 points a game,
right?
And that's kind of like video game. You're playing on the easiest level possible. But like I said, there are other guys in the league, because I got a message on social media the other day saying the MVP race is already over. I'm like, the MVP race is not over. We're only 2 weeks into the season. Now, that's because the entire league or a lot of different people talk about the same 4 or 5 teams, the same 5 players. But you look at those other guys, and Marc had just mentioned Andre Drummond. Up until last night, he was a 20-20 player. Right. And he had an off night last night with 14 points and 15 rebounds.
Something I'm kind of liking for these other players over Curry is what they're doing besides scoring. Now, I understand, Curry he's rebounding the ball really well this year at 5 rebounds a game. I mean, for his size, that's very impressive. However, what I'm not liking, he only has a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. That's terrible. That means, every other play he makes essentially is a turnover, and that's not good. I mean, that's definitely not what you want out of your starting point guard.
It looks like Zach's in studio, because Zach's in studio with us right now. He has something like he's ready to boil over.
He's itching.
Zach, go ahead and jump in. Double Dutch your end.
Well, first off, Danny, thanks for introducing me, since I'm sitting to your left, man.
It's Double Dutch. So, we're jumping in, jumping out. So, Zach, go ahead and jump on into the game of NBA Double Dutch.
I mean, come on, man. I'm here for the whole show. You know that.
I know that.
I like everyone that you guys have mentioned. Drummond's been phenomenal. I mean, his lowest rebound game this season is 10 rebounds. I mean,
good stat.
The guy is just gobbling up rebounds. He has, 17 or more in all but 2 games. One of them was last night. The other one was that 10-rebound game, the second game of the season against the Jazz. But the guy I'm going to go with, Kevin Durant.
Yeah, he's looked good too.
I mean,
okay. I know.
And Russell Westbrook isn't?
I know. I'm just kidding with you, Zach.
Well, I guess I agree. I think Durant's having a monster year. Somebody else to consider, possibly Paul George. I mean, his recent performances have been, nothing short of amazing as well.
Yeah, I agree with Paul George. He's really, I think he's kind of surprised me a little bit with how well he's played this early. I still think he's probably getting back up to speed after missing.
Agreed.
Almost an entire calendar year of basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But, we're looking at it kind of the same with Durant. Durant's averaging, 37, 3 steal and a block a game?
Yeah, he's at 30.1 points a game. Almost.
I mean, we're talking about a guy who is quasi-defending the MVP as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I think it's kind of ridiculous that we don't talk about him. But I feel like this discussion kind of started because you wanted to know, a name that we've been talking about other than Curry.
Right.
He's not going to win the MVP. He's not going to win any awards. But the most talked about person is Kobe still.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course. I think Kobe's calf, should be leading Twitter right now when it comes to to effectiveness, because for me, and speaking of Kobe, because he'll be here tomorrow night, they're playing the Magic here in Orlando. It's just that Kobe's talked about because it's an enigma type of thing. It's like he's the greatest player left of our generation that's still playing. And sad to say that Kobe is not the same player he once was. I mean, the injury,
he's a shell of himself, yeah.
The injuries, and the fact of Kobe Bryant's turned to a 3-point shooter. It's gotten bad. I mean, it's one thing to be a 3-point shooter at the end of your career, but it's another thing to be a bad 3-point shooter, consistently throwing up 3-pointers throughout the entire season. And, the Lakers are going to be Lakers, and Kobe's not playing tonight against Miami. But, yeah, the big, Kobe's always going to be a story. And, another early season storyline has been injuries. There are guys who've been hurt, the beginning part of the season. Look at Dallas. They're still getting their guys back. Wes Matthews Chandler Parsons. New Orleans has been hit so hard with the injury bug right now. That's why they haven't won a game. It seems like every day they're losing somebody off the roster. Orlando lost Vucevic.
Yeah, Boogie Cousins, too.
Yeah, Boogie Cousins was down.
Games.
With the Pelicans, it's bad when you're turning to Jimmer Fredette to try to save your season.
Well, and Ish Smith's playing big minutes at the point guard position.
Exactly.
I mean, that's rough.
And I've been kind of critical of the Pelicans over the last couple of weeks. I think that their general manager, Dell Demps, has done a pretty poor job of piecing together that roster. Mm-hmm. And, I think it all stems to giving Omer Sheik and Alexis Ajinka, 87 million combined?
Right. Some number that doesn't even exist, probably.
I mean, I know that's spread over 5 years, but still, look, I had Mason Ginsberg, who writes for Bourbon Street Shots, which is the Pelicans' True Hoop site. He kind of got on my case, like, well, they were capped out already. Okay, then make a trade. Trade Ryan Anderson. Try to trade Tyreek Evans. Try to do a sign and trade. Go after a Kyle O'Quinn. I mean, he's cheaper, and he would still be giving you some good center minutes. I mean, there were better ways to spend that money. And, I think that that's kind of one of the big things that's hurt them because they have absolutely no depth even when they're healthy.
Right.
Well, you know what? Mark, I'm going to let you lead off with this one. I mean, we're talking about depth around the league. I know, like I said, every week we always throw Sixer jokes at you, so I'm going to leave the Sixers out of this one.
Okay.
You look at depth around the league, and you see the injury bug going down. Like I said, it's November. Zach had mentioned that has already crippled the Pelicans. You see Orlando without Vucevic. What other team, in your opinion, has been crippled so far that's been, you can tell the difference of how bad they've been, whether it be injuries or just not getting it together? What team do you think has been the most disappointing so far?
I got to go with Sacramento. They've been injured. They also been hurt. It's just a lot of different things going on, with Sacramento. So I think they've been very disappointing, but the injuries do play a part. So I'll go with them first.
Paul, before we go to break, I'm gonna let you close this one out. Who do you think has been the most disappointing so far in the beginning part of the season?
My most disappointing team is the Pelicans. I know they've been hit with the injury bug, but this is a team that everyone was, all of us, even here in the studio, when we talked about it, we thought they were a playoff team, consensus. Analysts, everybody, and the start they've had has just been awful. I understand injuries, but there's some games in there that they probably should have won and did not, and that's not. It's not something you want from a team that's supposed to be fighting for a playoff spot. I'm gonna piggyback off this one, Paul. I mean, we know the Pelicans have been disappointing. Memphis. I'm gonna go into mine after the break because Memphis to me deserves more than about 2 minutes. Oh, you know what? Let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies because my team that's been most disappointing has been the Memphis Grizzlies, and me and Paul talked about this, before the show started. The Grizzlies are a team right now that don't have an offensive identity. They have no idea what's going on, and Paul, and Paul, in your situation, you've watched this, and we both talked about this earlier. The team has really been struggling with offense. They brought in Jeff Green to be an offensive guy, and he seems to be lost. They signed Matt Barnes this summer. They really didn't upgrade anything offensively, and the defense is bad. So I'm going to let Paul if Paul is the actual general manager of the Memphis Grizzlies, let's let Paul start it off, and then we'll go around the table real quick. Paul, I'm going to let you doctor up this team because right now, in my opinion, this team is completely, insanely not playing well. And how do you fix it? Well, some trades need to be made or some moves need to be made, obviously. And I don't think Mario Chalmers is the answer. While I do think that was a beneficial trade for them, I don't think that was the answer. Something you and I talked about, which I think will help them, is trying to get a guy like Joe Johnson. He provides instant offense. He can be a big shot maker if need be. Is he going to help you defensively? No, but I mean you have enough defensive players on the roster to not really worry about taking back a guy that isn't defensive minded. So someone like Joe Johnson, other players could be like a Rudy Gay, which I don't think they would want Rudy Gay back in Memphis per se, but these are the